Okay, welcome. Negronis with Nord, episode number 48. We are going to talk about the Super Bowl today, which I watched for the first time in a few years. I feel like the last few years I have missed it, but me and my fiance, we made chili.
For you, for you, and for you, chili.
And sat and watched mostly the commercials, but also the game. Obviously, for advertisers, the Super Bowl is, well, the Super Bowl of advertising. I thought this year was wildly disappointing. Historically, Super Bowl ads have been a time for agencies and brands to absolutely bring their best creatively. You have 15 to 30 seconds. I think a 30-second ad this year was $7 million. Another $3 million just in talent fees, minimum, a couple million. So let's say you're all in, you're at $15 million for 30 seconds, just as like a baseline, okay? Get people's attention, hold their attention, and ideally communicate something about your product in 30 seconds, and then figure out a way where, most brands are looking for 3x ROAS generally. So, you have to hope that you can sell $45 million of product to pay for this $15 million ad, which I think is a bar that very few, if any, people will cross. So it becomes, I think, a place for the biggest advertisers in the world to flex their muscles, to show what they have, and bring their best. And there has obviously been some incredible, iconic ads. Watching Super Bowl ads is probably part of the reason I got into advertising and interested in brands and interested in this industry in general, right? There's some really amazing art, honestly, that has been created and has aired in these times. Obviously, the most famous, probably the Apple 1984 ad.
Just 2 days ago, we ran a Super Bowl ad that could have won the Oscar for Best Short Film. There are more people who can tell you about the ad than can tell you who won the game.
But there's, 50 examples. We were sharing everyone's favorites in Slack, and a lot of these things are timeless. 20 years later, you remember those ads. That's hugely valuable for brands. I think it's something that is more difficult on social, where 10 years from now, you're not going to remember someone's Instagram post, but there are a handful of advertisements that can stay with you for decades. I thought this year was just a big fucking snooze fest. I thought almost everyone struck out. There was a couple of standouts, but this is not a show about advertising. It's a show about influencer marketing. What can we learn from this? One, again, I think that we are in the kind of the death spiral of this industry. I think if that Super Bowl was the best that the ad industry has to offer, they don't have that much to offer. And I think that, we will continue to see traditional advertising be phased out for influencer ads. I think that, again, we are in competition for brands' ad dollars, and I don't know that I can think of a single brand's ad that I saw at the Super Bowl where I thought that $15 million was better spent on that ad than it would have been spent doing an influencer campaign for a similar amount of money. I mean, $15 million, obviously that is a very, very robust, large-scale, full-year program that would reach many more than 113 million people in a much more targeted, impactful, and exciting way than running a 30-second ad. So just looking at the two things, apples to apples, there's a lot of benefit that comes from it, just from the people involved in it, right? You're up for all these awards, you probably go to the game, all of your friends and family and colleagues, everybody sees it. It's a very visible thing. I'm sure a very exciting thing to work on as a creative, but I don't think people are making sound business decisions and weighing it and saying, where can I get the most ROI? 30 seconds for $15 million or a full year of influencer work for $15 million, which again, that would be an enormous program. I can't believe anyone is spending money on this stuff. I also thought what was interesting was older celebrities were used. I was just talking to Haley, who's obviously our new woman behind the camera here, and we were talking about this idea that because culture has kind of fractured into all these tiny, smaller mini cultures, right? We used to have what we call a monoculture that was controlled by a few kind of large corporate entities, record labels, movie studios, radio stations, publishers, and TV networks, right? They controlled what you watched, when you watched it, what you listened to, what you read, and ultimately what you thought. And so celebrities became this kind of, these generalists. You know, they could do everything. If you look back, a Michael Jordan or a Mariah Carey or a Michael Jackson or, you know, any of the big celebrities from the 80s and the 90s, you know, these were people with worldwide name recognition who you could put into an ad, and every single person that sees that ad is going to know who that person is going to have a idea or a feeling about that person, and ideally it's going to help the ad be more effective, right? And now, if you think about celebrity today and it being fractured amongst influencers and, you know, just generally the fact that, you know, there can be people who are wildly influential in one small community and completely unknown in another. We don't have as many like super celebrities because we don't have a single culture anymore. It's gone from this one, again, monoculture to hundreds of thousands, millions of kind of small, thriving, different cultures. And so I think they had to use old celebrities because the last time we had these kind of super generalist celebrities was, you know, early 2000s, 90s, 80s. And so that's why we've got Diddy and John Travolta and the guys from fucking Scrubs. They did the Clueless thing with Alicia Silverstone. We did a Breaking Bad spoof. You know, this is stuff that was, any of those names are icons, but they're not part of culture anymore. I mean, Breaking Bad was on 20 years ago. I thought the whole spectacle of these celebrities being paraded out in these uninspired, uninteresting ads was kind of sad. And again, a sign that what we have been talking about on this show for years, it is happening. The fact that what we are doing in influencer marketing is going to be the dominant form of brand communications, that when we think about advertising, we're going to think about influencer marketing, that this is the place where brands will spend most of their budgets, will spend most of their time and energy, and that this is where people are going to be finding out about brands, getting inspired, purchasing products, planning trips. What we are doing is what is driving culture. You know, I think the traditional media just hasn't caught up to that. I think the Super Bowl was a really great example of it. I actually am disappointed that I continue to be locked out of Twitter. It's been over a month since I've been able to access my Twitter account. I had a VP at Twitter who was helping me get it back. I was emailing with support, and then Twitter's support email just doesn't work anymore. You get a bounce back that says that like the email is no longer valid. So I like was replying to a support email, and like Twitter's support email just like doesn't work anymore. So I'm a little bummed that I didn't get to like be in the Twitter feed and see what ads kind of transcended into, you know, memes. I mean, you could definitely see, certainly during Rihanna's performance, but there were some ads where you could see like, oh, that's going to be a GIF that's going to get like, you know, passed around a lot, or that's going to become a meme. You can just kind of like feel it sometimes, especially if you spend your entire life online. So unfortunately, I can't speak to like Twitter and which ads were impactful. I do think as we think about the ones that work, the ads that I thought did a good job potentially returning the investment for the brands were not the ones with the big celebrities or anything like that. It was the more simple stuff that was like explaining what the product was. You know, I thought the farmer's dog stuff was fine. I mean, Google Pixel, they've been doing that one forever. But again, it was super, super focused on the product. What does John Travolta and the cast of Scrubs singing a song from Greece have to do with T-Mobile? Like, what? Jack Harlow playing a fucking triangle, like, give me a break. That was like trying way too hard. The Super Bowl is such an interesting moment in time in advertising to understand what is happening, what are the trends, where do we think things are going. And again, I think everybody in this space should leave that game and what happened with the advertising feeling really excited about where influencer marketing is going. How much money ad dollars were spent. Let's see. So the $500 million, 500 million, probably $600 million that brands spent just on media dollars. That's not activations around that stuff. That's not anything in the run up to it. And that's not production. So let's say it's $1 billion probably. That's like, 20% the size of the fucking whole industry that we're in on one game. Can we compete with that and can we win? Absolutely. The moment everyone talked about was Rihanna applying some Fenty makeup during her performance and searches for Fenty shot up on Google afterwards. Obviously this is the first performance she's done in 6 years. She's not really a working musician anymore. She's running an enormous beauty business. It was like a cute, fun little moment, but nothing mind-blowing. But that was the thing that kind of dominated the conversation about the ads that worked. And it was interesting because that one was kind of the most authentic and like influencer-y moment of the night, right? It was just a person who we like doing her thing, grabbing a product that she believes in and using it. And so it's interesting that kind of dominated the conversation about what worked or what didn't work. And it was this kind of natural, unscripted moment, the kind of stuff that we are trying to do all the time in the influencer space. So brands probably spent $1 billion creating, running, and supporting their ads during the 4-hour Super Bowl or however long it is. And I like to think about, again, our ability to compete with this. And as I think about what influencers are doing, and if we or this industry was given that $1 billion, would we be better stewards of it? Would we get more return on that investment for brands? I absolutely 100% believe in essentially every case that the money would have better been spent with influencers. And I think we should all feel a huge amount of confidence and excitement about where things are going over the coming years, because I think this Super Bowl marks a bit of a line in the sand of when it becomes clear that this industry is withering on the vine and dying. As always, feel free to ask questions. Make sure you follow us on social. We throw up some prompts during the week to grab questions from y'all. We will not talk about the Super Bowl next week. And we'll be back to answering your questions on anything influencer or creator related. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. I will say this was my first time making chili. It was not incredible. I just didn't think it was not as flavorful as I feel like it needed to be. Do you have a chili recipe you want to send me? Please send it through. I've obviously have done something wrong. Send me a good one. I feel like the chili recipe is one of those things, there's people that spend like 20 years perfecting their chili and everyone's got their own way of doing it.